The assembly hall of the Orion Nexus shimmered with blue light as holographic constellations rotated above the delegates' heads. Quantum translators hummed softly, turning a dozen alien languages into synchronized whispers that drifted through the chamber like electric wind. Security drones hovered near the ceiling, their lenses adjusting as hundreds of representatives took their seats around the circular platform. He stood near the edge of the platform, pretending to study the interface bracelet on his wrist, while silently wondering how he had ended up representing humanity in a room full of beings who measured time in star cycles. The device beeped at him twice as if reminding him to breathe. "Relax," muttered a voice beside him. She appeared without dramatic entrance, which somehow made it more dramatic. She had long ears that curved gracefully beyond her shoulders, faint glowing patterns tracing along the edges like soft neon rivers. Her features resembled a human woman, yet her eyes reflected starlight differently, as if galaxies were stored behind her gaze. A subtle armored weave shimmered across her suit, adjusting to the light as she shifted her stance. He glanced at her. "You said this was going to be a simple meeting." She tilted her head. "It is." "Then, why do I feel like I'm about to sign a contract with 3 hidden clauses and a spaceship attached?" She smirked. "Because you always assume the universe is negotiating against you." A nearby alien official with translucent skin cleared his throat loudly, projecting a list of agenda points into the air. Economic cooperation, resource sharing, defensive alignment, diplomatic partnerships. The words floated past them like background noise. She leaned closer and whispered, "Watch." Before he could ask what she meant, the central hologram shifted. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as every delegate turned toward the platform. Her long ears lifted, catching the change in atmosphere. She stepped forward. Her boots made soft metallic clicks against the surface as silence spread through the hall. Even the drones adjusted their recording angles. She raised her voice, clear, confident, carrying through the translator network. "Across this assembly," she said, turning slowly to face every species represented there, "I declare my choice." The words rippled through translation channels, repeating in dozens of tones and accents. He froze. "Choice." He mouthed the word silently. She continued, pointing gently toward him without hesitation. "This human stands beside me not by treaty obligation, not by alliance demand, and not by political arrangement." A few delegates exchanged confused looks. One whispered something that sounded suspiciously like disbelief mixed with amusement. She smiled wider. "He is my partner, my equal, my husband." The chamber went silent. Somewhere, a data tablet dropped onto the floor with a metallic clatter. A robotic ambassador recalibrated its internal logic matrix. A holographic assistant displayed a blinking warning. "Unregistered declaration detected." He stared at her. "Wait, what?" She glanced back at him, eyes sparkling. "You heard me." His brain attempted to process the situation, while simultaneously searching for an escape route that did not involve exploding into diplomatic chaos. A small alien child seated with a delegation pointed at them and asked loudly, "Why is the human glowing red?" He looked down. "I am not glowing." She laughed softly. "Your heartbeat is accelerating. The sensors detect it." "Stop broadcasting my panic to the galaxy." Her long ears twitched, amused. "Too late." The assembly erupted into controlled chaos. Officials debated whether her statement violated protocol or represented personal autonomy protected under Universal Charter amendments. A legal AI projected articles into the air, highlighting clauses like battle strategies. One diplomat shouted, "This requires authorization from the Interstellar Council." She responded instantly. "Marriage does not require permission from those who do not participate in it." That statement triggered more murmurs, some offended, some impressed. He finally inhaled deeply, stepping beside her. "Okay," he said quietly to her. "If we're doing this, at least warn me before you declare intergalactic ownership of my social life." She nudged his shoulder gently. "I declared partnership, not ownership." He paused. "Good answer." She turned back to the crowd, her expression firm but playful. "Let history record this moment correctly. It is not a political weapon. It is not a tactic. It is a choice made openly." A nearby drone zoomed in, capturing her long ears framed against the glowing backdrop. Someone in the crowd whispered, "She's serious." Another replied, "Or dangerously confident." He leaned toward her and whispered, "You realize we're going to be the subject of memes across 3 spiral arms." She grinned. "I hope the memes show my good side." "You have 2 good sides." Flattery noted. Despite the confusion swirling through the hall, a strange shift occurred. The tension did not dissolve completely, but curiosity replaced hostility. The declaration echoed again through the chamber, softer now, less like a disruption and more like an opening. She reached for his hand. He hesitated for half a second. Then he took it. The contact sent a quiet signal through the sensors around them, registering connection, voluntary and mutual. The assembly watched. And for the first time since the meeting began, silence did not feel like confrontation. It felt like possibility. The declaration still echoed through the central nexus long after her words faded. Holographic projections replayed her statement on loop, tagging it as a non-standard interpersonal commitment, while system administrators scrambled to decide whether to classify it as diplomacy, rebellion, or entertainment content. He stared at the floating notification in front of him. "Why does the system suggest I file paperwork?" He muttered. She glanced at the interface projected beside them. "Because bureaucracy survives even in deep space." A cluster of armored security units approached, their metallic footsteps resonating against the luminous floor. Their visor lights scanned her long ears, her facial patterns, and then his identity chip. "Verification required," one unit announced in a synthesized tone. She crossed her arms calmly. "Verification for what?" "Status clarification. Your statement created cross-system diplomatic implications." He leaned closer to her and whispered, "See, I told you this would trigger something." She smiled at the security unit. "The only status change is mutual consent." The unit paused as its internal processor calculated the meaning. A faint buzzing sound followed. "Processing, ambiguous category." He couldn't stop himself. "It means we like each other." The unit responded instantly. Romantic attachment detected. Threat level, negligible. She turned her head toward him and whispered, "Threat level, that's flattering." He rolled his eyes. "I hope my relationship status doesn't require combat clearance." The security units retreated slightly, but remained nearby, forming a loose perimeter as observers continued to record every movement. Representatives from different star systems whispered among themselves, projecting private conversations through encrypted light pulses. A tall amphibious delegate approached cautiously. "Your declaration challenges interstellar alliance customs. Do humans accept such public claims?" He opened his mouth to answer, but she spoke first. "Humans accept choice," she said confidently. The amphibious delegate blinked its translucent eyes. "And if the human disagrees?" He quickly shook his head. "I do not disagree." She glanced at him with playful triumph. "See." He sighed. "You could at least let me build suspense before answering for me." She tilted her long ears slightly, a gesture he had learned meant amusement. "You hesitate too long." The amphibian delegate produced a small hovering sphere that displayed legal documents. "Then, we must register this partnership for cross-species record alignment." She leaned closer to the sphere and tapped it lightly. "On one condition." "What condition?" the delegate asked. "No one turns it into a political asset." The sphere emitted a light pulse and displayed. "Condition accepted, humor clause activated." He stared at the screen. "Did the system just add humor as an official clause?" She laughed softly. "I insisted." He looked at her in disbelief. "You negotiated jokes into interstellar law." "Of course. If we're stuck in paperwork, we might as well make it entertaining." Nearby, a pair of AI assistants projected exaggerated confetti animations above their heads, mistakenly interpreting the registration process as celebration protocol. One AI announced loudly, "Congratulations on optimized compatibility." He pointed at the floating confetti. "Please tell me that's optional." She grinned. "It's already running." He covered his face for a moment before laughing despite himself. As the registration process continued, additional officials approached with technical questions about genetic compatibility, habitat adaptation, and shared citizenship rights. A scientist projected a biological model between them, displaying his DNA strands beside her alien genomic structure. Compatibility probability, the scientist asked. The system responded with glowing text. Undefined requires emotional variables. He raised an eyebrow. Emotional variables. She nudged him gently. That's your department. Great. The universe decided feelings are now measurable data. She placed her hand over the holographic projection, interrupting the calculation. Stop reducing connection to statistics. The scientist nodded slowly. Agreed. Some phenomena exceed computation. The chamber slowly shifted from tension to cautious curiosity. Delegates who had initially viewed the declaration as disruption now leaned in to observe how two different species navigated public visibility without conflict. A young technician whispered to another, "They argue like colleagues." "Or like people who know each other too well," the other replied. He heard it and turned slightly. "We just met in terms of official timeline standards." She smiled, but not an experience. He glanced at her long ears, catching the blue light. "You planned this moment, didn't you?" "Not the reaction," she answered, "but I planned the honesty." He exhaled slowly. Around them, drones adjusted their focus, capturing quieter interactions instead of dramatic reactions. The energy in the room changed again, from shock to observation. The security unit that had first approached returned and projected a final status message. Declaration recorded. Partnership acknowledged. Monitoring period initiated. He read it aloud. Monitoring period. She shrugged. They want to make sure we don't destabilize the galaxy with excessive affection. He smirked. That sounds dangerous. Extremely. She moved closer and lowered her voice so only he could hear. Ready to survive interstellar scrutiny. He looked at the crowd, the hovering drones, the endless projections of legal codes. Then he squeezed her hand. If we survived that announcement, we can survive anything. She laughed, a warm sound that contrasted with the cold glow of the chamber. Above them, the holographic banner updated automatically. Status, publicly declared. Under it, a new line appeared slowly. Impact, just beginning. News of the declaration spread beyond the Orion Nexus before the assembly session even officially ended. Quantum transmission nodes flashed across star systems, replaying the moment she turned to the galaxy and said the words again, this time packaged as trending content. He watched a live feed projected in front of him. "Why is there a title under our names?" he asked. She leaned over his shoulder and squinted. "Because someone labeled it. Unexpected alliance formation, emotional variable included." He blinked. "That sounds like a scientific experiment." She laughed softly. "To them, it probably is." Across the hall, journalists from multiple planets floated closer with hovering recording orbs. One orb projected a translator voice that asked loudly, "Is this relationship strategic or personal?" He opened his mouth to respond carefully. She answered first, "Personal." The orb hesitated. "Is there economic advantage involved?" She tilted her long ears slightly. "There is mutual support. If that becomes economic advantage, that's a side effect, not the purpose." He whispered to her, "You're better at interviews than I am." She grinned. "I've had practice dealing with stubborn council members." A reporter from a crystalline species adjusted its light refraction and asked, "Human, did you consent before the public declaration?" He scratched the back of his neck. "Yes, technically after she said it." She nudged him lightly. He said yes. The reporter's surface shimmered. "Clarification recorded." He sighed. "Next time can we rehearse surprises?" She smirked. "Surprises are more authentic." Suddenly, a diplomatic notification appeared on his wrist device. It displayed 3 urgent messages from Earth's embassy. He opened them. Message 1, request immediate briefing. Message 2, explain political consequences. Message 3. Is this real? He stared at the screen. She peeked at it and laughed. "Your planet thinks I kidnapped you." "I am not kidnapped." "Good, tell them." He sent a quick reply. Voluntary, unexpected, still processing. She leaned closer and whispered, "Tell them I'm charming." He typed again. "And charming." She nodded approvingly. Meanwhile, a group of high-ranking officials gathered around a tactical hologram projecting potential alliance outcomes. The simulation showed branching futures, trade expansion, cultural exchange, possible diplomatic friction. One scenario flashed red with dramatic warnings labeled, "Public romance instability risk." He pointed at it. "What does that mean?" A strategist responded. "It predicts overanalysis of your relationship." He stared. "That's a threat level." "Yes." She folded her arms. "Deactivate that simulation." The strategist hesitated. She added calmly, "Replace it with the let people live algorithm." The system processed her request. After a brief pause, the projection changed to a simple message, "Probability of harmony, dependent on mutual respect." He smiled. "That version is better." She looked at him with mock seriousness. "See, even the galaxy agrees." Nearby, security drones scanned the perimeter again, but their posture had relaxed. One drone emitted an accidental celebratory tone after misinterpreting a handshake between delegates as approval ceremony protocol. The tone echoed loudly. He jumped. "What was that?" She laughed. "Apparently, the drone thinks we're renewing vows every 5 minutes." He stared at the hovering machine. "Please tell me it won't play music every time we stand close." The drone responded. "Affection threshold detected. Sound protocol optional." He covered his face. "Turn it off." She pointed at the drone. "Keep it, it's funny." He looked at her. "You enjoy watching me embarrassed." "Absolutely." A small group of young cadets from a nearby star academy approached cautiously. One of them asked, "Is it true humans can survive long-term exposure to our atmosphere?" He replied, "With breathing support and advanced tech, yes." The cadet turned to her. "And is it true you chose him because of compatibility metrics?" She smiled gently. "I chose him because he questioned everything." The cadet processed that answer carefully. He whispered to her, "That sounded deeper than necessary." She whispered back, "Good." It confused them. Laughter rippled through the group. Suddenly, the station lights dimmed briefly as an announcement echoed across the hall. "Council emergency session activated." He looked around. "That sounds serious." She nodded slowly. "They're deciding whether to formalize your status beyond symbolic recognition." He raised an eyebrow. "Beyond symbolic." She stepped in front of him slightly, her long ears catching the glow of the emergency lights. "Yes, they're discussing legal integration." He froze. "Integration?" "Citizenship alignment, mobility access, shared protection rights." He blinked. That escalated quickly. She smirked. "You declared yes to me. The paperwork just followed." He laughed despite the sudden gravity of the situation. The council projection displayed voting sequences across multiple species. Light pulses indicated approval, hesitation, and debate. He watched the votes accumulate. "Are we supposed to influence this?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, it's already influenced." He looked at her. She continued quietly. "By how we behaved after the declaration." He considered that. The final votes aligned slowly. Approval reached majority. The system displayed, "Partnership recognized, conditional but official." A loud chime echoed through the chamber. She turned to him with triumph in her eyes. "Congratulations," she said playfully. "You survived galactic review." He exhaled in relief. "I feel like I passed a test I didn't study for." She laughed. Above them, the holographic banner updated once again. "Status recognized." Under it, a new line appeared. "Public reaction still watching." He glanced at the cameras hovering nearby. "Of course they are." She stepped closer and gently bumped her shoulder against his. "Let them watch." He smiled. "Fine, but next time you announce something in front of the galaxy, give me at least a 5-second warning." She grinned. "No promises." The formal recognition spread beyond the station, triggering reaction across colonies, orbital cities, and deep space research hubs. Holographic broadcasts replayed the council approval with subtitles translated into dozens of dialects. On social networks between star systems, people debated the moment like it was a live sports event. He watched comments scroll across a projection in front of him. "Someone just called me the human who married the galaxy." She peeked at the screen and laughed. "Not bad, sounds heroic." "It sounds exaggerated." Exaggeration attracts attention. He shook his head. "I preferred when my life was normal and nobody analyzed my relationship with planetary-scale commentary." She crossed her arms playfully. Normal was boring. Before he could respond, a communication beacon activated near them. A projection materialized showing a representative from a distant sovereign system. The figure adjusted its glowing interface. "We request clarification regarding your partnership." He sighed softly. "Here we go again." The representative continued. "Does this union grant access to strategic data or military collaboration?" She stepped forward immediately. "No automatic access. Everything shared is negotiated." The representative paused. "Then what advantage does your alliance provide?" She turned her long ears slightly toward him before answering. "Trust." Silence followed. He glanced at her, surprised by how simply she said it. The representative processed the answer and replied, "Trust is not quantifiable." She smiled. "Exactly." The projection dissolved after the message was recorded. He exhaled. "You make diplomacy sound like philosophy class." She nudged him gently. "Better than turning it into a trade contract." Suddenly, his wrist device vibrated again. A notification appeared. "Invitation, public demonstration request." He opened it. "It says citizens from 3 colonies want us to appear together at a cultural exchange event." She leaned closer. "They want proof we're real." "Proof?" "Yes. Some think the declaration was staged for political leverage." He raised an eyebrow. "Staged? For what purpose?" She smirked. "Views." He stared at her. "Are we influencers now?" She laughed loudly. "Apparently." The event request included a holographic stage set in an open plaza inside the station. Thousands of attendees had already reserved virtual viewing spaces. He scratched his head. "So we show up, and what? Wave." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "We answer questions. We act naturally. And maybe you tell them why you didn't run away after I made that announcement." He crossed his arms. "Because running would have been embarrassing." "Good answer." Later, when they arrived at the plaza, projection screens displayed live audience reactions. Aliens of various forms gathered physically and digitally, watching with curiosity. A young attendee raised a hand and asked loudly, "Is love between species difficult?" He glanced at her. She answered first. "Different biology, different habits, yes. Difficult sometimes." He added, "But communication makes it manageable." She smiled at his response. Another voice shouted, "Do you argue?" He looked at her. She grinned. "Constantly." He nodded. "About small things." Like who controls the remote interface?" She raised her long ears proudly. "I do." The audience laughed. A robotic spectator emitted a cheerful beep after detecting humor in the interaction. He leaned toward her quietly. "See, humor lowers tension." She whispered back, "That's why I keep teasing you." Suddenly, the stage lighting shifted as an automated message interrupted the event. "Warning, unknown signal detected near orbital perimeter." The crowd murmured. He turned toward the control panel. "That doesn't sound good." Security drones activated and projected a 3D map of approaching energy signatures. She scanned it quickly. "It's not an attack." "Then what is it?" The map zoomed in. A fleet of small independent vessels approached slowly, not armed, but broadcasting a repeated transmission. He listened to the translation. The message said, "We wish to witness the union that challenged protocol." He blinked. "They traveled here, just to watch." She smiled softly. "Apparently we inspired curiosity." He sighed. "Or chaos." The vessels docked peacefully. Their occupants disembarked cautiously, joining the audience. One traveler approached him directly. "You represent humanity," the traveler said. He shrugged. "Sometimes." The traveler looked at her long ears and then back at him. "Does your partner ever doubt your choice?" He thought for a moment. "Yes." She turned slightly, surprised. He continued, "And I doubt myself sometimes too." The traveler nodded slowly. She stepped closer to him and said calmly, "But doubt doesn't cancel commitment." The traveler seemed satisfied by that answer. As the event continued, people asked practical questions about shared living spaces, communication tech, and cultural differences. At one point, a child asked loudly, "If you fight, who wins?" He laughed. "We both lose if we fight badly." She added quickly, "And we resolve it before it escalates." The child nodded seriously. Later, when the crowd thinned and the event ended, they stood together on the quiet platform. He looked at the empty seats. "That was exhausting." She stretched slightly, her long ears swaying. "You handled it well." He glanced at her. "Next time, can we announce something privately?" She smiled mischievously. "Where's the fun in that?" He shook his head but couldn't hide his grin. Above them, the station AI updated the status banner once more. Public engagement, successful, cultural impact, increasing. He looked at the projection and muttered, "I feel like we're part of a long-running documentary." She laughed softly. "Then let's make it worth watching." The final review council convened one last time inside the orbital chamber to officially confirm the partnership as permanent status rather than temporary spectacle. Holographic seals from multiple systems rotated slowly above them, waiting for final authorization. He stood beside her, trying to look calm while scanning the voting interface. "Is this the part where everything gets undone?" He whispered. She glanced at him and smiled. "If they tried, I'd object." "You can object to interstellar law." "I just did." He chuckled despite the pressure building around them. The council AI announced, "Final confirmation required from both parties." A glowing interface appeared between them. It displayed two options: accept continuation or revoke public declaration. He stared at it for a moment. She folded her long ears slightly, watching him carefully but saying nothing. He exhaled. "You know," he said quietly, "when you made that announcement, I thought my life had turned into chaos." She raised an eyebrow. "Now." "Now it's still chaos, but it's our chaos." She smiled. He tapped accept continuation. The interface shifted toward her. She looked at him one more time. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. She pressed accept. The chamber lights pulsed in approval as the system registered mutual confirmation. Council AI declared, "Partnership locked into official interstellar registry. Status permanent unless voluntarily modified." He blinked. "Locked." She laughed softly. "That sounds dramatic." He shook his head. "It sounds irreversible." "Good." Suddenly, celebration protocols activated across the station. Instead of loud alarms or flashing chaos, soft light patterns flowed along the walls like moving constellations. He looked around. Did they just throw us a digital party? She tilted her head. Apparently. A group of engineers approached carrying a small device. One of them handed it to him. "This is a personal habitat module upgrade. Commissioned in your name." He inspected it. "It looks like a mini starship apartment." The engineer nodded. "Because public attention requires privacy protection." She grinned at him. "See, even the system thinks we need space." He rolled his eyes. "I already live with a space traveler. How much more space do I need?" "More." They activated the device. Instantly, a holographic blueprint unfolded, transforming part of the station into a shared private living environment. Adaptive walls, adjustable gravity fields, and transparent ceilings showing distant stars. He walked inside the projected space. "This is actually nice." She followed him. "Better than arguing in public." He laughed. "True." Suddenly, his wrist device received one final message. It was from Earth. He opened it. The message read, "Humanity recognizes your decision. Support confirmed. Media interest will decrease over time." He smiled. She peeked at the message. "So your planet approves." "Looks like it." She nodded slowly. "Good. I didn't want this to become a diplomatic war." He turned toward her. "You worried about their approval?" "A little." He stepped closer. "You declared in front of the entire galaxy. That wasn't fear." She smirked. "Confidence hides concern." He considered that. "Fair." A sudden alert flashed across the room. Incoming private transmission. He looked at the screen. "Who now?" The projection activated. It showed the same young cadet from earlier. The cadet spoke nervously. I just wanted to say, your declaration made me realize I shouldn't hide who I care about. He blinked. She smiled warmly. Then our chaos helped someone. The cadet nodded shyly before disconnecting. He looked at her. That's bigger than politics. She agreed quietly. Yes. Silence settled between them, not awkward, but comfortable. He walked to the transparent wall and looked out at the glowing galaxy. You know, he said, I used to think the universe was too big for one person to matter. She joined him beside the window. It is big. Then how did we end up here? She touched her long ear gently. Because even in a big universe, connections create gravity. He smiled. Did you just turn romance into physics? Yes. He laughed. The station AI dimmed the celebration lights gradually, leaving only soft starlight illuminating the room. He turned to face her. We survived public scrutiny. Yes. We survived legal review. Yes. We survived memes. She laughed loudly at that. Yes, barely. He took her hands gently. What happens now? She looked at him with calm certainty. Now we live normally. He raised an eyebrow. Define normally. She smiled. Exploring systems, traveling together, disagreeing about small things, protecting our freedom to choose each other every day. He nodded slowly. That sounds better than headlines. She leaned her forehead lightly against his. Good. He whispered. Do you regret announcing it the way you did? She paused briefly. No. Why? Because if I had stayed silent, someone else would have defined our relationship for us. He understood. He squeezed her hands. Then I'm glad you spoke. She smiled. Above them, the registry status displayed. Permanent partnership, voluntary, recognized across participating systems. He looked at it once, then turned his attention back to her. The chaos that had once terrified him now felt like shared history. Ready for the next chapter? He asked jokingly. She raised her long ears proudly. Always. He grinned. Good, because I'm not letting the galaxy write the sequel without us. She laughed.